The great hall of the alien council was silent, heavy with judgment. Bright flames burned in tall crystal lamps, throwing shadows across the marble floor. Hundreds of eyes turned toward her, the young daughter of a powerful family standing alone in the center. She could hear her heart beating fast inside her chest. She had been summoned here to receive her punishment. Her crime was not treason. It was not betrayal. It was pride. She had spoken too loudly, insulted the council, and refused the traditions of her people. For this, the elder said, she must face a punishment that would break her arrogance. She expected exile. She expected prison. But when the words fell from the elder's lips, her entire body froze. "You will be married," the elder declared, "to a human." The hall erupted with whispers. A human? To her people, humans were weak, small, and unworthy of respect. They were tolerated as allies but never accepted as equals. For her, who carried royal blood, this was more than humiliation. It was a wound to her honor. Her face turned pale, but she refused to bow. She lifted her chin and stared at the council with cold fire in her eyes. "You call this justice?" she asked. "You call this honor? To bind me to a creature not of my kind?" The elder's answer was calm. "Yes, as for you mocked humility. Now you will learn it." The decision was final. Guards escorted her out. She walked with heavy steps, but inside she was burning with fury. Her people watched as she left the hall, some pitying her, some secretly pleased at her fall. To them, this was entertainment. To her, it was torture. That night, the marriage was arranged with no delay. She wore no jewels, no golden veil, only a plain robe that showed how little choice she had. She stood before the altar, her jaw tight, her hands stiff at her sides. Across from her, the human waited. He was tall for his kind, with strong shoulders but a quiet face. His eyes were not proud, not mocking. They were calm, almost gentle. When the vows were spoken, he did not smile in victory. He only lowered his head as if he too carried a burden. She told herself she would never forgive him. She would never speak to him except when forced. He was her punishment, nothing more. The ceremony ended quickly, and they were led to their new quarters, a simple house at the edge of the city, far from the palace she once called home. She sat in silence, staring at the wall, refusing to look at him. He moved carefully as though afraid to disturb her and prepared a small meal without a word. Night fell and the air grew cold. She wrapped herself in a blanket, sitting apart from him. But then he did something she did not expect. He did not demand her closeness. He did not force his presence. Instead, he quietly placed another blanket near her side, making sure she would not be cold. She clenched her teeth. Why was he acting with kindness? Was this part of his trick? Did he wish to show pity for her? She hated pity more than punishment. Hours passed. The silence between them was thick. She felt anger, shame, and confusion fighting inside her. She wanted to shout, to throw words like knives at him. But when she turned her head, she saw his face under the dim light. His eyes were closed, his body still, but there was no peace in his expression. His brow was heavy as though he carried a secret pain of his own. For the first time, doubt touched her heart. Was he truly her enemy? Or was he also a prisoner of this cruel arrangement? As she lay awake, turning these thoughts in her mind, something unexpected happened. The wind blew the window open, scattering the flames of the lamp. She jumped, startled, and reached out without thinking. At the same moment, he moved to close the window. Their hands brushed together. It was a small touch, just for a second. But her whole body stiffened. She felt warmth travel through her skin, rising up her arm, spreading into her chest. It was not like fire. It was soft, calming, almost safe. Her eyes widened. She pulled her hand back quickly, hiding her surprise. He said nothing, as if he too had felt something he could not explain. For the rest of the night, neither of them spoke. But she could not forget that touch. She had called this marriage a punishment. She had sworn never to care for him. Yet now her heart whispered a question she did not want to hear. What if this punishment was something else? The night after their forced marriage was heavy with silence. She sat near the window, her back straight, her eyes fixed on the darkness outside. The human, her new husband, moved quietly in the room, careful not to disturb her. She could feel his presence but refused to look at him. Her pride demanded distance. Her anger kept her heart closed, but her thoughts betrayed her. She could not forget the moment their hands had brushed. It had been brief, unplanned, yet it stayed with her like a mark on her skin. Why had his touch felt so different? Why had warmth spread through her body instead of disgust? She hated herself for remembering it. She told herself it meant nothing, just nerves, just chance. But deep inside, she knew it was more. He sat across the room, repairing something small and metal with his hands. The light from the lamp shone on his face. His brow was focused, his movement steady. She wondered why he stayed so calm. Didn't he feel the weight of this union? Didn't he understand she hated him? Finally, she spoke, her voice sharp. Do you enjoy this? To see me brought so low? To see me tied to you as punishment? He looked up slowly, his dark eyes steady. No, he said simply. I don't enjoy your suffering. His answer unsettled her. She expected arrogance or mockery. Instead, his voice carried no pride, only quiet truth. She turned away quickly, unwilling to show her confusion. Later that night, when the wind grew cold, he placed a log in the fire and sat near it. She kept her distance, but she could not resist glancing at him from the corner of her eye. He sat with his arms folded, staring at the flames. There was no triumph in his face. Only weariness. Why did he look weary? She was the one humiliated. She was the one punished. What reason did he have for sorrow? As she watched, she noticed his hands. Strong but scarred. Scars not of luxury, but of work, of battles. He was not soft, as her people often described humans. There was something different about him. Something she could not name. When the fire burned low, he rose and moved past her toward the table. She tensed as he passed, expecting him to touch her again. But he did not. He only poured water into a cup and placed it near her side. For you, he said softly before stepping back. She frowned. Was this kindness or pity? She did not want either. Yet her throat was dry, and after a long pause, she took the cup. She did not thank him, but her fingers trembled as she drank. He did not watch her. He only returned to his seat and sat quietly. Hours later, when she thought he had fallen asleep, she heard his voice. Barely a whisper meant for no one to hear. I must not let her know. Not yet, her breath caught. She froze, afraid he would notice she was awake. What was he hiding? What was it she must not know? The words burned in her mind. Suddenly, this marriage felt even stranger. If he carried a secret, then this punishment was not what it seemed. The next morning, the city was alive with noise. Merchants called out from the streets, selling food and fabrics. She walked through the market with him by her side. Though she hated to admit, she felt safer with him near. Whispers followed her wherever she went. The noble girl punished by the council married to a human. Some laughed behind their hands. Others looked away in pity. She clenched her fists, humiliated. But before she could speak, a sudden commotion broke out. A cart rolled out of control, its heavy load of stones tumbling toward the crowd. People screamed and scattered. She stood frozen in shock as the stones rushed toward her. Then in an instant, he was there, the human. He shoved her out of the path, shielding her with his own body. Stones crashed to the ground where she had stood. Dust filled the air. Her heart pounded as she looked up at him. He had taken the blow on his shoulder, but he stood firm, his face calm. Are you hurt? He asked, his voice steady. For a moment she could not speak. She stared at him, her pride shaken. He had risked himself without hesitation. Not for duty, not for reward, but simply to save her. I am fine, she said finally, her voice unsteady. He gave a small nod and stepped back as though nothing had happened. But inside her, something had changed. She could not ignore it. The memory of his touch, his quiet words, his selfless act, all of it tangled in her heart, raising questions she feared to answer. That night when he lit the lamp in their house, she watched him secretly. He did not boast about saving her. He did not ask for gratitude. He sat quietly, repairing his torn sleeve. His silence spoke louder than pride. She felt restless. Her punishment was supposed to break her. Yet instead it was breaking her walls. Who was this man? Why did his presence unsettle her more than hatred ever could? As she lay awake once more, her thoughts burned with confusion. His first touch had awakened something inside her. And now his actions were planting seeds of doubt in her anger. She closed her eyes, whispering to herself in the dark. This cannot be love. It cannot. But her heart did not believe her words. The days that followed were strange for her. She told herself she hated him, yet she could not ignore him anymore. Every time she looked at the human, her husband, she saw things that troubled her heart. He was not proud like the nobles of her kind. He did not seek power or attention. Instead, he carried himself with quiet strength, as if he lived by rules no one else could see. At first, she tried to stay away, refusing to speak to him unless forced. But living under the same roof made distance impossible. She began noticing the little things. How he woke before sunrise to fetch water from the well. How he gave food to the children in the street before eating himself. How he greeted the old and the weak with respect, though many mocked him in return. It was confusing. He was supposed to be her punishment. Yet his actions did not feel like chains. They felt like lessons. One morning, she followed him secretly through the market. He thought she was still at home, but curiosity led her footsteps after him. She wanted to know what he did when no one was watching. He moved quietly, carrying a basket of bread. To her surprise, he did not buy treasures or food for himself. Instead, he went to the poorest corner of the city, where beggars sat in the dust. He placed bread in their hands, smiling softly, though he kept nothing for himself. Her chest tightened. Why would a human treated as less by her people show such kindness? Was this weakness, or was it strength her kind had forgotten? She turned away, unsettled only to hear shouting. 3 men blocked his path, sneering. "You think you can shame us by feeding the dirt dwellers?" One spat. "You don't belong here, human." Before she could move, one of them swung a fist. She gasped, but the human did not strike back. He blocked the blow with steady arms, pushing the man aside without cruelty. His voice was calm. "Go home. This is not worth your anger." The men cursed and left, their pride wounded by his refusal to fight. She watched from the shadows, her heart racing. He had shown strength, but also restraint. He could have hurt them, yet he chose peace. Later that night, as they sat in silence at home, she finally asked the question burning in her chest. "Why do you let them treat you this way? Why not fight back and show them your power?" He looked at her with calm eyes. "Because power is not only in the hand that strikes. Sometimes it is in the hand that does not." His answer left her speechless. She turned her head away, but the words carved themselves deep into her thoughts. That evening, while he slept, she found herself restless. She paced the room, her pride fighting with her growing doubt. She wanted to hate him. She wanted to see him as her punishment. But her heart refused to obey. Finally, her eyes fell on a wooden chest near his side of the room. It was plain, locked with a small clasp. She knew she should not touch it. But curiosity burned stronger than caution. Quietly, she knelt and slipped the clasp free. The lid creaked open. Inside, she found folded clothes, a dagger with a worn handle, and a letter sealed in red wax. The wax bore the mark of her people, the royal crest. Her breath caught. Why would a human husband hold a letter marked with her family's symbol? She broke the seal with trembling fingers and unfolded the paper. The words were written in her own language, though the handwriting was not familiar. Danger grows within the court. The girl is not safe among her own. Hide the truth until she is ready. The one she trusts least must be the one to guard her life. Her heart pounded. The girl, that meant her. The words spoke of danger in the council, in the court of her own people. And they spoke of him, the human, not as a punishment, not as a stranger, but as a guardian. She dropped the letter back into the chest, her mind spinning. Everything she believed was shaken. This marriage was not what it seemed. If he was chosen to protect her, then who was her enemy? The door creaked. She froze, clutching the chest shut. He stood there, his face unreadable in the dim light. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence pressed like iron between them. "You read it," he said finally, his voice low. Her lips parted, but no words came. He stepped closer, his eyes dark and serious. "Then you know the truth. But it is only the beginning. You must be careful whom you trust, even among your own blood." Her chest tightened. The thought of betrayal in her family made her stomach turn. But one thing frightened her more than all the rest. The fact that she no longer knew whether to fear him or trust him. That night, as she lay awake, her mind swirled with questions. Was he truly her guardian, forced into her life for her safety? Or was this another trap set by the council to break her spirit? Her punishment had become a mystery, and now her heart was no longer chained by hate but by doubt. The letter burned in her mind long after she closed the chest. She lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, her breath heavy, her heart restless. The words would not leave her. Danger grows within the court. The girl is not safe among her own. Who wrote it? Why was it hidden in her human husband's possession? And what did it mean? That the one she trusted least must guard her life. She turned her head toward him. He sat near the dim light of the lamp, silent. sharpening his dagger with slow strokes. His face was calm, yet there was a shadow in his eyes, as though he carried burdens too heavy to share. She wondered, had he known all along that their marriage was not punishment but protection? Her pride screamed at her to demand answers, but her fear held her tongue. Fear that he might confirm her worst suspicion. Her own people were plotting against her. The next day she confronted him at last. "That letter," she said sharply, her voice cutting through the silence of their small home. "Why do you have it? Who gave it to you?" He set down the dagger and looked at her steadily. "If I tell you, will you believe me?" Her heart raced. "That depends on what you say." He rose slowly, his tall frame casting a shadow across the room. His voice was calm but heavy. "I was chosen to protect you, not as your punishment but as your shield. There are those in your court who would rather see you silenced than hear your voice again." Her stomach twisted. The council, the elders, perhaps even her own blood. The thought cut deeper than any blade. She wanted to shout, to deny it. But her memories rose against her. The sharp looks in the council chamber, the whispered laughter of the nobles, the silence of those who should have defended her. Could it be true? "You expect me to believe," she said bitterly, "that the council, my family, my people would betray me? That only a human would guard my life?" His eyes softened. "I expect nothing, but I swore to protect you, even if you never trust me." His words pierced her, but before she could answer, the sound of boots echoed outside. A fist pounded against the door. "Open in the name of the council," a soldier's voice shouted, her breath caught. He moved quickly, pushing the chest under the bed, his hand reaching for his dagger. She stood frozen as the door burst open. A group of armored guards stormed inside, their spears gleaming under the torchlight. "There he is," the captain barked. "Seize the human." Before she could speak, 2 soldiers grabbed him, forcing his arms behind his back. He did not fight. His eyes met hers, calm even as chains locked around his wrists. "What is the meaning of this?" she demanded, her voice shaking with fury. The captain's gaze was cold. "The council has discovered your husband carries secrets. Human secrets. He is accused of spying, of plotting against us. He will stand trial. That is a lie," she cried. "He has done nothing." But her protests fell on deaf ears. The soldiers dragged him toward the door. As they passed, he turned his head, his voice low, meant only for her. "Trust your heart, not their words." The words struck her like lightning. Trust her heart that had hated him, then doubted him and now feared for him? The door slammed shut behind them, leaving her alone in the silence of the house. Her body trembled. Her punishment, her unwanted husband, was now a prisoner. And she did not know whether to despise him or to save him. Her eyes fell to his hand as he was dragged away. For just a moment, the sleeve of his robe slipped back, revealing a mark burned into his skin. Her eyes widened. She knew that mark. It was not human. It was the crest of the royal guardians, a sacred symbol only given to protectors sworn to die for the bloodline. Her knees weakened. The truth hit her like a storm. He was not her punishment. He was her shield, and the council had just taken him away. That night she could not sleep. The letter's words returned again and again. The one she trusts least must be the one to guard her life. Her chest ached with guilt. She had mocked him. She had hated him. Yet he had saved her in the market, shielded her from danger, and carried the mark of her protector. And now, because of lies, he was locked in chains. The palace bells rang in the distance, signaling that a trial would come at dawn. She clenched her fists, her pride shattering at last. She had a choice. Stay silent and let him be condemned, or risk everything to find the truth. Her heart whispered the answer she feared. She could not let him face this alone, and so, under the cover of darkness, she pulled on a cloak, her steps quiet but steady. She would go to the prison. She would find him. She would demand answers. But when she reached the heavy doors of the prison, a shadow was waiting for her. A familiar voice whispered from the darkness, "You should not be here, daughter." She froze. The figure stepped into the torchlight. Her breath caught in her throat. It was her mother, the queen herself. The torchlight flickered against the prison walls, throwing long shadows across the stone floor. She stood frozen, her breath shallow, her cloak clutched tightly around her shoulders. Before her stood her mother, the queen, her figure tall and stern, her eyes sharp even in the dim light. "You should not be here," the queen repeated. her voice low but firm. For a moment the young woman could not speak. Her lips trembled as anger and confusion warred within her. Why? Why did you allow this? Why did you let them arrest him? He is no spy. Her mother's gaze softened slightly, but only for an instant. The council is not united, she said quietly. There are those who fear your voice, your defiance. They see you as a threat to their power. They wanted you removed. When they could not silence you, they turned to him. Her heart pounded. The truth she had feared now spilled from her mother's lips. Then it is true, she whispered. The letter, the mark on his hand. He is not my punishment. He was chosen to protect me. The queen's eyes flickered with surprise. You found the letter? Yes, she said, her voice trembling. And I saw the guardian's mark. You cannot deny it. Her mother stepped closer, her hand lifting as though to touch her daughter's cheek but stopping just short. You were never meant to know this so soon. Yes, he was chosen as your protector. The council would never suspect a human of guarding royal blood. To them it was a punishment. In truth, it was a shield. The young woman staggered back, her mind spinning. Then why let them chain him? Why let them call him a traitor? The queen's face hardened. Because the council demanded it. If I spoke against them, they would see through the disguise. To protect him and you, I had to remain silent. Her chest ached. Silent? Watching as he was dragged away, beaten, humiliated? How much longer could silence protect anyone? He saved me, she whispered fiercely. He risked his life in the market. He carries pain quietly. He has shown more honor than those who sit on the council throne. And now you would let him die? Her mother's eyes glistened with something she rarely saw, fear. If you fight for him openly, they will turn against you both. Do you not understand? The council has spies everywhere. If you stand with him now, you risk more than disgrace. You risk your life. But her heart no longer cared for risk. The memory of his words, spoken as soldiers dragged him away, echoed in her mind. Trust your heart, not their words. Her heart beat fast, louder than reason. She clenched her fists, her voice trembling but firm. I cannot abandon him. If he is to die, then I will stand with him. Her mother studied her, sorrow shadowing her regal eyes. For a long moment, silence stretched between them, broken only by the distant clang of chains and the low murmur of guards. Then the queen spoke, her voice heavy. Then you are truly my daughter, she said softly. But be warned, once you walk this path, there is no turning back. Before she could answer, footsteps echoed down the corridor. 2 guards approached, their armor clanking. The queen quickly pulled her hood over her head, retreating into the shadows. The young woman tightened her cloak, her heart racing. The guards passed, speaking in hushed tones. The trial is set for dawn. The human will be judged and executed for treason. Her blood ran cold. Executed. The word rang in her ears like a death knell. She could not wait. Dawn was only hours away. If she hesitated, she would lose him forever. When the guards disappeared, she turned back, but her mother was gone. Only the whisper of her cloak remained in the darkness. The young woman pressed her hand against the prison wall, her heart pounding with desperation. She had to act. She had to reach him before dawn. She slipped through the corridors, careful to avoid the patrols. Finally, she reached the row of cells, each one dark and damp. The air was thick with the stench of mold and iron. She gripped the bars of the last cell, and there he was. Her human husband. Her protector. Her punishment-turned guardian. He sat against the wall, chains binding his wrists, but his eyes were calm as they lifted to meet hers. You came, he said quietly. Her throat tightened. How could I not? They plan to execute you. He gave a faint smile, though his face was pale with exhaustion. I told you. This was never about me. It was always about you. They fear what you might become. Tears stung her eyes, though she tried to hold them back. Then let them fear. I will not let you die for me. His gaze deepened, and for a moment the weight of the world seemed to vanish. Be careful, princess. If you defy them now, they will hunt you as well. She reached through the bars, her fingers brushing against his. That same warmth surged through her body, stronger now, filling her chest with courage. Then let them hunt, she whispered fiercely. I would rather fall beside you than live as their prisoner. The sound of footsteps returned, closer this time. She pulled back quickly, her cloak hiding her face, but her heart burned brighter than her fear. This was no longer punishment. This was destiny, and she would not run from it. The night was long, but she did not sleep. She sat in her small home, cloak still clinging to her shoulders, her mind replaying every word from the prison. His voice, calm even in chains, echoed again and again. They fear what you might become. Fear, that was the truth of it. The council had dressed their cruelty in fine words, calling it justice, calling it order. But in reality they were afraid of change, afraid of her voice, afraid of her strength. And to silence her, they were willing to sacrifice him. The fire in her chest grew hotter with each passing hour. She had spent her whole life bowing to tradition, to rules she did not believe in. They had called her prideful, punished her by binding her to a human. Yet the punishment had revealed more truth than all their lies. She rose to her feet, her hands trembling. She could not let dawn come. If she waited for the trial, he would not live to see another day. She had to act now. Slipping out into the dark streets, she moved quickly, her cloak drawn low over her face. The city was asleep, but soldiers still patrolled, their armor clinking faintly as they walked. She kept to the shadows, her heart hammering, every step a risk. At last the prison loomed before her, its stone walls towering. Lit by the glow of torches, she crouched near the side gate, waiting until 2 guards turned away before she crept inside. Her breath came sharp and shallow, but her resolve held firm. Inside, the corridor smelled of iron and damp earth. Chains clinked in the distance, voices murmured low. She pressed herself against the wall, watching as a lone guard moved past. When his footsteps faded, she slipped deeper into the prison. Her steps led her to his cell. The human sat in the same place as before, his back against the wall, his wrist still chained. But when his eyes lifted and found her there, his face softened, as though her presence alone was enough to break the weight of his chains. "You should not be here," he said quietly. Her throat tightened. She had heard those same words from her mother. But this time she gave her answer with certainty. "I will not let them kill you." He shook his head. "If they catch you here, they will call you traitor. They will take everything from you." "They already have," she said fiercely. "They took my honor, my freedom, my voice. You are all that remains, and I will not lose you too." For a moment silence stretched between them. Then slowly he reached out his chained hand and she pressed her fingers against his. Again that warmth surged through her, burning away her fear, filling her with courage she had never known. "Very well," he said at last, his voice low but steady. "Then if this is your choice, we will not turn back." Her hands trembled as she pulled a key from her cloak. She had stolen it from a sleeping guard on her way in. Fumbling, she slid it into the lock. The chains rattled and fell loose. He flexed his wrists, his eyes never leaving hers. "You risk everything," he murmured. She lifted her chin. "So do you. That makes us the same." They moved quickly, but the prison was not silent for long. A sudden shout rang out. A guard had spotted them. "Halt!" Her heart leapt into her throat. Soldiers rushed forward, their armor clattering. The human pulled her behind him, his body a shield. He snatched up a fallen spear and blocked the first strike, his movements sharp, trained. She realized then, he was no ordinary man. He fought like one who had lived with danger all his life. "Run," he shouted, holding the guards at bay, but she refused to run. Grabbing a torch from the wall, she swung it wildly, forcing back another soldier who tried to reach them. Her heart pounded, adrenaline burning through her veins. For the first time, she was not just the girl punished, not just the daughter of a queen. She was fighting for her choice, her future. Together, they forced their way down the corridor. Chains clattered, guards shouted, footsteps thundered behind them. The heavy prison doors loomed ahead. With a final strike, he shoved the last guard aside, slamming the doors shut behind them. They staggered into the night air, gasping, hearts racing. The city lay quiet, unaware of the storm that had just begun. She clutched his arm, her body trembling, but her eyes were bright with fire. "We are not safe," he said quickly. "The council will hunt us." She met his gaze, her voice steady. "Let them. I have made my choice." In that moment, she knew there was no turning back. She had defied the council, defied tradition, defied even her mother's warning. All for him. But in her heart, she felt no regret. For the first time, she was not living under the shadow of punishment. She was living by her own will. And as long as his hand was in hers, she would face whatever came. Far away, the palace bells began to toll, signaling the first light of dawn. But for her, dawn had already broken. The city bells echoed in the distance as dawn broke over the horizon. She and the human ran through the narrow alleys, their breaths heavy. their steps echoing against stone walls. The night's escape still pulsed in her veins. The clash of steel, the shouts of guards, the chains falling free. For the first time since her so-called punishment began, she felt alive. But they were not free yet. Behind them, horns sounded, calling soldiers to arms. The council would not rest until they were captured. Her heart pounded with urgency. Where could they go? Where could they hide? He slowed suddenly, pulling her into the shadows of an abandoned courtyard. His face was tense, his eyes sharp. "We cannot run forever," he said. "They will track us. You must choose now, face them with truth or live the rest of your life hunted." She clenched her fists, her chest burning. She had already made her choice the night she freed him. "Then we face them," she said firmly. Before he could answer, a figure stepped into the courtyard. Cloaked in royal colors, her presence carried power even without guards. It was her mother, the queen. Her breath caught. "Mother." The queen's eyes swept over them both, her face unreadable. "The council has declared you traitors," she said quietly. "They have already spread the word that you conspired with him to overthrow their rule." The young woman's hands trembled, but her voice did not waver. "Is that not what they always feared? That I would speak? That I would rise against their lies? Now they only dress their fear in false words." The queen's expression softened. For the first time, the steel in her eyes cracked and sorrow shone through. "You were never meant to carry this burden so soon, but you have chosen your path." She stepped closer, her gaze shifting to the human. "And you were meant to protect her in secret, not to stand beside her in open defiance, but now there is no hiding what you are." The young woman's heart leapt. "Tell me, mother. Tell me the truth of it all." The queen's voice dropped heavy and low. "Yes, he is your guardian. When the council threatened your life, I sought one who could not be bribed, who owed nothing to our kind. The mark on his hand is the seal of the royal guardians binding him to your bloodline. His presence at your side was never punishment. It was protection disguised as shame." Her chest tightened, tears filling her eyes. Everything she had hated, every insult she had hurled at him, now weighed like chains around her own heart. Yet beneath the shame rose something stronger, gratitude, even love. The queen turned to her daughter. "But now you both stand at a crossroad. If you flee, the council will hunt you until the end of your days. If you fight, you may die before you see another sunrise." The human spoke for the first time, his voice calm but steady. "If death is the price of truth, then I will pay it. I did not take this vow to survive, I took it to protect her." The young woman's breath caught. His words pierced her like arrows of fire. She looked at him, seeing not her punishment but the man who had saved her in the market, who had endured chains without complaint, who had risked his life again and again for hers. Her hand found his, and once more that warmth surged through her, binding them stronger than any vow. She lifted her chin, her voice fierce. "Then let us not flee. Let us fight. If they call us traitors, then we will show them what true loyalty means." The queen studied them both, her lips pressing into a thin line. Then slowly she nodded. "So be it. If this is your choice, then I will no longer stand in your way. But remember, once the council sees you together, there will be no forgiveness." The horns sounded again, closer now. Soldiers poured into the streets, their banners rising above the rooftops. The queen pulled back into the shadows, her cloak blending into the light of dawn. The young woman and her human protector stood side by side in the courtyard, their hands locked, their hearts steady. The air trembled with the coming storm. He looked at her, his voice low but unshaken. "From the moment they bound us, I swore I would protect you. But now it is no longer duty. It is my choice." She met his gaze, her own voice strong. "And I, who once called you punishment, now call you my strength. Whatever comes, we face it together." The soldiers rounded the corner, their armor gleaming, their spears raised. The council's judgment had come to claim them. Yet neither flinched, for in that moment their bond was no longer hidden, no longer denied. Her so-called punishment had become her salvation. His vow as guardian had become something greater. And as dawn lit the sky with fire, the first battle of their shared destiny began.